From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here with you. It's a Monday. Hope you had a good weekend and ready to rock and roll on the first day of the work week. We've got a great show on tap. We're going to open up the phone lines here in just a moment for you. If you want to join in the conversation, he's on every month. It is our pleasure to have Davidson County's top law dog. Okay, along with Chief Anderson, I'm talking about the Sheriff Darren Hall. Good morning to you, sir.
Good
nice
morning,
to have
Nick.
you on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. We'll open up the phone lines if you want to join in the conversation whenever we have Sheriff Hall on. You know, we open it up if some of you want to ask him questions, 737-7587. Lots to talk about with you this morning. You know, a lot going on. I know since you were last on, and I've done a story with you since about the transition now.
Right.
Construction about to begin on the new jail, or rather tearing down the existing jail and getting it going. And then also, interesting article. I sensed some of this was going on prior to this in the Tennessean this morning. And, maybe you'd made some reference in the past about the way this is being handled. Now, the headline here says, Sheriff and Mayor at philosophical odds. Okay, you and Mayor Barry, both elected officials. What does that mean? I mean, quote, have you said that you have a different philosophy with regard to the way this jail project's being handled?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a difference of philosophy, I think, about the role the sheriff plays in Nashville. It's a very unique position, to be honest with you. Our size makes us, the police, fire, sheriff's office are very similar in size. Police is larger, but I'm just saying we're very large, nearly 1,000 employees. And so there are a lot of issues that impact that large of an agency, the budgets, change in policies, and so forth. And so because you're not a department head, you don't report to the mayor, you're not at the table when those types of decisions are made, that kind of leaves you out as an independently elected person, as it should be. But what is rare is that we're going through probably the largest, biggest project in the history of the Sheriff's Office. There's no doubt about it. It's a very large thing to do, and keep in mind, one of the disagreements, for example, is that we're really building a jail. We're not building a criminal justice center. The Criminal Justice Center that was built over here in 1982 had a major stakeholder in the police department because they had a major chunk of the building. The court systems, there was multiple courtrooms in there. There's all sorts of clerks' offices. There's actually a snack bar for the public to come in and out of the building. So it was a very, if you will, and the jail. And so you had multiple owners, if you will, multiple tenants. And so back then, I wasn't here in '82, but back then, I can see where the mayor's office needed to steer that because you had all these different people involved, and it would be very difficult for one. That's not what we're building at all. We're building a jail. The police headquarters is moving to Murfreesboro Road. There is no police presence at all. At all. They can drop the prisoner off and drive on. The courts are not being built in the building. We don't need that. We built the courthouse just a few years ago. So this is the jail. And the mayor's office continues to call it the Criminal Justice Center. That's just not accurate. There's no center involved. It's really the housing of the jail inmates. The Metro Council a year ago, the mayor that is presently the mayor was in the council at the time. It was approved to rebuild the jail. It wasn't to rebuild the Criminal Justice Center. If it was the Criminal Justice Center and all these other entities involved, you could argue that it needed to be an independent of those people kind of leading us. This is not what's happening. This building is going to be the jail, and we're going to run the jail, the sheriff's office, whoever the sheriff is. You're going to ask me one day in this role, why did it cost so much, and why was it not bigger on this end, and why do visitors go this end of the hallway, and where do they go, and the public, why do they have to park over here? And I can't answer those questions because, quite frankly, those decisions are being made outside of the sheriff's office. What the sheriff is involved with, sheriff staff, is helping make sure that the jail cells, there's enough of them, and how the inmates are going to live up on the floors, and that's a good thing. We need to be involved. Clearly, we're the only ones in the county that should have that expertise. I'm not denying that we're involved as a stakeholder around the table with multiple stakeholders listening to the mayor's office lead this project. What is not happening is how the visitation room space, how the public are going to interact with the building. There's a $20 million last week additional cost added to the building. I can't tell you what that is. I have no idea what that money is going to. And I think I should be held accountable for that. I think you should ask me. I have people around this county ask me all the time those kinds of questions. And up until just a few months ago, I could defend it. And I have never denied a year ago what the cost and why we should move. I'm very willing to take ownership of it. But what I'm afraid of is, as difficulties are going to exist, the delays in the project, the costs are going to, always going to be at issue. Those are going to be important questions. But in 5 years, when it's up and running, the functional aspect of the building, I want to make sure that the fingerprints of the people who should be held accountable for it are there. And whoever the sheriff is at that time should have to at least explain the functionality of it. Well, if it's me, and I hope it is, I want to have had say-so in how it's designed and how it's built. And I don't mean jail cells. We are clearly involved up on the floors. I'm talking about the way the building operates. How does it coexist with the court system, and how does it work with the visitors and the family members? How does visitation work? How does the
Well, let me ask you
access?
this, and if that's the case, and we'll get into more of maybe what interaction you've had with the mayor's office. I mean, you could make the argument outside of a few judges, you and our mayor are the two most powerful elected officials in this county. Period. Two most powerful, aside from a few judges. And so how is it that, in your mind, you have lost some of the interaction here? What power? I mean, she's elected just the way you are. You answer to no one but the constituents. Same thing for her. So how is it that she perhaps has been able to co-opt some of this and make it more of the mayor's office project as opposed to yours? I mean, can you fight back on that? Have you tried talking to her?
Yes, and that's the philosophical problem, I think. I mean, the reality is the mayor is over the government, most people think, and that's true, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's the highest figure.
But it's the council that handles the purse strings.
Right, and so the funding for that has to go through the council, but the decisions, for example, general services, which by charter, it's kind of a technical terminology, are required and expected to handle construction projects. Let me explain what that means. A year ago right now, I was working in my office every week with general services, with the contractors, helping design and put together the plans for what we were trying to do in Harding Place. I mean, I was out every day lobbying and arguing and begging and pleading with the community, with the council members, and with the public. And general services every day in the room with us. And that's the way it ought to be. Okay, and so what happened is, I'm not trying to take it away from general services and take it away from the procurement laws and the way the process has always worked. What I'm saying is we should be leading that process. We should be in our office talking with the police department, talking with the court system, talking with members of the community about how visitation should work, how the court access should work. That's not being done at all. That's all being handled by, I mean, you can read Rich Riebling's comments in there. It says something like, our staff are at the meetings when the mayor's office is hosting stakeholder meetings. So we have staff who are sitting around a table with many other stakeholders, listening to the mayor's office filter through what they think is important as to the way the project should go. And that should not be, I believe it should be the other way around. We should be hosting those meetings. Those stakeholders, the police department, the lawyers, the public, are going to hold us accountable for how that building functions when it's all over with.
So the bottom, that's part of, I suppose, your concern here. If, as there are going to be bugs in any project, which there will be with something this big, down the road, once it's in place and the bugs are there, you may not have had control at this point, but you know as well as I do, 2-3 years from now, if there's a problem with this jail, they're going to be holding you accountable, not the mayor.
Nick, they're going to hold me accountable for the money. The public will. They should. I mean, why did you build something that was bigger or smaller or needs more beds or fewer beds or needs more access or less access? That's going to happen. That's the kind of the political part of it. But down the road, let's go a couple of years, it's up and running. If the attorneys don't have direct access to their clients, or if you will, the family member can't get to and from and it doesn't have to park in a place that's not convenient for the location for the inmates, they're going to hold me accountable too. The family member, the lawyer, the police officer who can't get in and out of the building. So what I'm talking about is the inmate side up on the floors. We're directly involved with general services, helping make decisions about what cells we need and how big they need to be and where they need to be. That's important. But that's not really what I'm talking about. The accountability for how the building functions for the community, for the police department, for the public defender's office, for the visitor, is going to be holding me accountable.
And right now you're not getting any input, because I would think the mayor, and we don't have her on this morning to talk about it, and we'll maybe reach out to her later today, but I would think she too wants this to work well. So you know, I think you both probably have a common goal here, that you want this jail to work well and be a success. So is this some kind of backroom power struggle or something? What's really going on here when you both probably should be sharing the same goal here?
Yeah, I think, you know, the way I would look at that is because it's just a jail. If it was a criminal justice center, I think the mayor's office role needs to be, if you will, inflated. It needs to be the leader because you have multiple stakeholders kind of involved. That's the first problem. It's really not a criminal justice center. And the reason that's important is the police department works for the mayor. You could argue that because you have judges, if you did courtrooms in the building, you have jails in the building, you've got all these different entities. We need someone to kind of to facilitate that and lead it. When it's just going to be a jail, and just so you know, Rich Riebling, who's been in the mayor's office both under the previous and this, I worked for 18 months. Literally, almost on a daily basis, with General Services and with the Finance Office, which was Rich Riebling's office, for 18 months. I continued to do that when this mayor was elected because that's what we had been doing and trying to put together the new plans for downtown, you know, very similar to the ones that were going to go in Harding. But the philosophical problem that I mentioned, clearly it is believed by the mayor's office that they should lead the project, and they compare it in every article or everything you see, like they do if it was a building for the water department or the health department. Those all are departments that report directly to the mayor.
Now, Riebling says he's flummoxed by your position and said nothing has changed fundamentally from the project in the design phase last summer.
That's just
in
not
the
right.
Tennessean.
That's just not true.
There has been a change.
Absolutely change. I have not spoken to Rich Riebling or the mayor about this in 6 months, maybe.
So
maybe January.
No. Now, could you just get on the phone with her today and talk to her, or is that you're waiting for her to call you, or why don't you two get together?
Well, let's talk about Rich first. I mean, I was talking and he was interacting with me on a weekly basis at the time, directly, because it was clear we were leading the project a year ago, and he knows that. And today we are not leading the project. If you keep reading, he mentions in there that there are stakeholder meetings hosted by the mayor where we have staff there. A year ago, we were hosting those meetings to ensure that everybody had their input, and at the end, the facility would be designed, I believe, with the functionality in mind of the sheriff's office. I think if you're going to make this a broader project, then the mayor's office role needs to be more directly involved. Because if the police department were staying there, it's a major chunk of the building, then that police department reports directly to the mayor. And if the mayor wants it to be a community policing or a decentralized police agency, clearly that is directly, I think, a reflection of the mayor. Because the police aren't there, the mayor's office and Rich Riebling need to be making sure that the police headquarters functions the way they want it to over on Murfreesboro Road.
Focusing on that, but let the people who know the jail the best. Who's in charge right now of the jail project?
General Services. There is not one doubt about that.
So it's out of your hands?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
Take a break on that note. When we come back, we'll take some calls, and we need to continue the conversation on this because, again, this new jail is a how many million-dollar project?
It was 113 when it started. It'll be more than that.
Yeah, it's a big, big money project. So we want to make sure that maybe we're on the same page here. Let's take a break, and we'll be back with more with the sheriff and your calls and your take on this. It's an interesting development in all this. We'll be right back. Stay with us.